today I'm going to talk about our ADOPT project performance of saline tolerant forages on saline soils. So this is an ADOPT project, which is agriculture demonstration of practices and technologies that's funded through the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership. And I'd also just like to thank some of the groups who provided forage seed for this project. So North Star, Nutrien, Brett Young, DLF, and Dr. Bill Billigatu at the University of Saskatchewan. And also a big thanks to the crew here at the farm. They did all the hard work, and I'm just get to stand here and talk to you today. So I'm sure most of you are aware that saline soils are a challenge that a lot of producers are facing on their annual cropland acres. Generally, those are areas that are unproductive and are just a host site for weeds and other unwanted species, so kochia, foxtail, barley, those kinds of things. And you're dumping inputs into those areas and you're not getting production out of them. So one of the solutions to that is to try perennial forages, which is what we have here today. So that's kind of where the idea from this project came from, as well as a few years ago I had a question from a producer who asked me if the saline tolerant forages that they're selling, are they actually saline tolerant, or is that just how they're marketed? So I thought, what a great idea for a demo to see how they perform in the field. So this is a 2-year demo project. There's also sites in Swift Current and Redverse. So basically we selected 10 different perennial forage species that have known saline tolerance. And then we had 3 saline soil salinity gradients, so low, medium, and high, and we seeded them on there and then counted establishment and yield. So the 3 salinity gradients, were low, medium, and high, and we used previous EM38 data to kind of select the gradients across the whole farm. So then we took soil samples before seeding just to confirm those salinity levels. So right along the road here is our low salinity gradient, and further back is our gradient, and then our high salinity gradient is actually not here. It's at a different site further down the road, so unfortunately we can't see that today, but that's where the high salinity gradient is. So within each of those salinity gradients, we had 6 grass species and 4 varieties of alfalfa. So the grass species were AC Saltlander, which is a hybrid wheatgrass, Dahurian Wild Rye, Salt King, which is also a hybrid wheatgrass. It's a new variety that's not yet on the market, so we are kind of excited to seed it here and see how it did. Slender wheatgrass, tall fescue, tall wheatgrass, and then the alfalfa varieties were Assault, Barricade 2, Halo 2, and Rugged. So we seeded the plots last spring on May 24th. Alfalfa was seeded at 8 pounds per acre, and the grasses were either 15 or 10 pounds per acre. And then we took establishment counts in June of last year as well. Establishment was decent, but there was obviously some weed pressures, which is completely normal with establishing perennial forages. And so we didn't find a significant difference between any of the species or varieties. So not one species did better establishing than the other. But there was a significant impact from salinity. So the high salinity site had poorer establishment than our low and moderate salinity sites here. And you could see that visually as well. Those sites they looked more weedy and just more patchy at the high salinity site. So for dry matter yield, we harvested August 22nd of last year, and there was no significant difference between the species or varieties. Again, so similar to establishment, there wasn't any difference between the varieties or species, but there was a difference between the high salinity versus the lower, the moderate salinity gradient, with the lower moderate having higher yields than the high salinity gradients. And you could also visually see that as well. The plants were just more productive here than they were at the high salinity site. So for this year, you can see that we've already harvested a lot of the plots. There's a couple that are left that were a little bit later maturing, but a lot of them have already grown back. We harvested about 2 weeks ago on June 26th. And yeah, they look good. Like some of the species were as tall as me, so they did well here. But again, you can visually see the differences on this site compared to the high salinity site. They were just a lot patchier, shorter plants, not as lush and green at that high salinity site. So I imagine that we'll see similar numbers next year once we do the analysis from the yield this year. So far the results from last year, it showed that none of the species or varieties were better than another, but they performed better under the lower moderate salinity compared to the high. So kind of the take-home messages, low and medium salinity gradients did well on the yield and establishment. The high salinity struggled just due to weed pressures and that higher salt concentration in the soil. But the plants in the high salinity site did produce, they established, they survived. They didn't do as well as here, but they did survive and have production on those acres. So that's telling me that in the field scale, if you have marginal or saline areas, a saline tolerant forage species should produce there as well, maybe where your canola is not producing. As far as the other sites, Redverse and Swift Current, obviously we have the luxury of irrigation here. They have dry land sites in Redverse and Swift Current, and they struggled very much with dry conditions last year, so they actually didn't get enough yield on most of the plots or gradients to measure. So they couldn't even harvest it. It was just pure kochia. So hopefully they had some time to establish this spring when there was more moisture, and we can get some data from those sites for this year. And so this in the field setting, the biggest issue with establishing perennial forages is your weed pressure and your moisture levels. So that's the biggest pressure with establishing your perennial forage species. So, but I do think that the demo does show that if you can get them established on your saline areas, then you can get some production off of those areas where you're putting those inputs. And that's kind of all I had. If anyone has any questions, I can answer them. Yeah, sure. So this one right here is tall wheatgrass. These are alfalfa. Barricade is this one here. This is AC Saltlander, Salt King, Halo 2, Tall Fescue, Dahurian Wild Rye. I think this is wheatgrass. This is a salt, and that's just the border. Well, if you have a mixed stand with legumes and grasses, there's very limited herbicide options for that. Most people are mowing their weeds if there's a big kochia stand, they'd mow it, take the plant matter off, and then hopefully their forages come back up after that. So mow as high as you can, mow the weeds as high as you can so that you're not setting back your forage species that much. I mean, it's not perfect. The main thing would be to start with a clean field. If you can spray, do some pre-burns before. I know that's really difficult, and to get the seed bank is impossible. So yeah, cut your weeds high so that it doesn't cut your forage back as much. Yeah, we didn't look at that in this project. I'm pretty sure there's other projects that have been done for that reason. The only thing with seeding in the fall is typically you have less moisture, so you have to be careful with and then you don't want your seeds to establish over winter and then kill over winter, but yeah, it is an option for sure. In general, anything over 4 EC is considered saline. This field, they are, I think, the low salinity was about 0.7, and the moderate was about 1, so not very high salinity at all. The high salinity site was 5. Moisture, yeah, and drill seeding is better than broadcasting just with that seed to soil contact. There's a lot of factors that are at play for getting forages established. Moisture and luck being one of them, I would say, yeah. Broadcasting over top of it sometimes will work. It's not the best because then those small seeds are competing with already established plants. You can try broadcast seeding, you can try drill seeding right into it again. Again, you might be damaging those already existing established plants. I guess keep in mind it is very marginal land if there's white salts on the soil, so even the saline tolerant forages will take some time to become established. A healthy non-saline site will take 2, maybe 3 years to get perennial forages established. So it is a game of patience as well for establishing forages. It's not like your annual crops. Yeah.